So we're on Daf Lamed on the base, 30b as they say. Beitsa, Maseches Beitsa. The Mishnah at the top of the page was talking about taking wood from a structure which is called a sukkah, but it's not really what we call a sukkah. It's talking rather about some kind of a shelter from the sun. He's using it during Pesach or Shavuos, and not really the mitzvah of sukkah, which we would normally use the word sukkah to attribute to the mitzvah of sukkahs. That's dealt with in a Beitsa, which the Gemora does bring afterwards, and it seems to say that there would be a problem taking from the real, what we call sukkah, of the mitzvah of sukkah, because somehow once it's part of a sukkah, it's completely off limits according to everyone. So the Gemora explains that and goes into one particular detail of that called Tanai. Because the Beitsa says that even though it's asur, but if you make it Tanai, then it's mutter. And the Gemora wants to know how that's possible. I don't know if we started that section with you yesterday. Remember? Don't think so. Shall we start that section, or do you want to review the other section first?
We can start.
Yeah? You see in the middle of the page there's two dots.
Yeah, the feet tonight.
Yeah, so just before that, like a line and a half before that, there's another two dots. So between the first two dots and the second two dots is a quote. Sometimes the Gemora has a very small quote from the Mishnah. Sometimes, like in this Gemora, less common, but the Gemora will do it from time to time. It's quoting not from the Mishnah that we had, but it's quoting from a Beitsa that we had. So the Beitsa, as I just said, says shavim, which means both Rabbi Shimon, who argues with the Tanakama, and the Tanakama, even though they do argue about a regular sukkah that fell down, etc., but concerning sukkah de Chag, a sukkah of Chag HaSukkos, the sukkah of the real sukkahs, on sukkahs, everyone agrees it's asur. Okay? That's what that phrase means. Shavim, everybody agrees, everyone's equal, meaning everyone agrees. The sukkah Chag, with the sukkah that's of Chag HaSukkos, the real sukkah that we call sukkah, and it's b'chag, during sukkahs. You have both a real sukkah and it's on sukkahs, everybody agrees, shehi asura, that will be asur to gain any benefit from the wood. But the Beitsa added, which we will discuss as well, the im hisne oleha, if he made some kind of a condition prior to sukkahs, seems that it can work. Hakol lefi tano. Everything is according to the condition he made. He can make a kind of a condition wherein the wood becomes permissible at a certain point. That the Gemora has a lot of trouble with. Why can you make a condition? How can you just say it's permissible when sort of Hashem said it's not permissible? That's going to end up being part of the problem that we're going to have to understand. So the Gemora starts out on that note. Okay? I'm going to try the beginning of right after the quote, after the second two dots.
Shavim, the sukkahs, achad, hi asura. Im hatana, aleha, hakol lefi tnai. Everything is according to the conditions you say.
Right, which implies you can get around the problem by making a condition, somehow stipulating that it won't become asur.
Me, Mahani Ba Tanai.
Right.
Who determines the condition?
Okay, now you are right that if this would be a Hebrew sentence, the word me would be the word who, would be the question who. But this is not a Hebrew sentence, this is an Aramaic sentence, okay? Now, if you know the word Mahani, you probably might know that it's Aramaic, but otherwise the word Ba would be Hebrew, and Tanai would be a Hebrew word Tanai. So it's not clear how you would know that this is an Aramaic sentence to know that the word me is not the question who, but rather in Aramaic it creates a question. It's sort of like a question mark before the question, like in Spanish. Okay, so one of the ways I would suggest, normally you have a few Aramaic words in the sentence that tips you off that this is Aramaic, and then you know the word me is just a question mark. But here, I don't know if the words in the sentence, obviously they didn't, but if you would recognize any of these words as being Aramaic, would you? Okay, so would you like to know my suggestion of a small hint that this might be an Aramaic me and not the Hebrew me? Because it starts with a vav, mi. Right? And you don't usually start a new section, a new sentence with the word and. Right? If we're talking about a new subject or we're getting into a new question, so we don't start with the word and. But in Gemora, often the word and shows you it's not being used in the typical fashion. So this would maybe be a partial hint. Shalom Aleichem. I'm glad they let you go for good behavior. Hope you paid them adequately.
Give you back the car also?
Yeah, what's after this? How are you?
Well, they gave it back to lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah, the lock's fixed. That's one thing that is fixed. So, you started without me?
We were very trepidatious. We pushed it off as long as we could. But with Matt sitting here, and he's our cameraman, so he gave me a new microphone today.
The cameraman.
They called me that too, but that was past life.
Good.
Jack brought a tangerine for you in case you're interested.
Sorry?
Jack brought.
Oh no, I'm not taking it. Thank you very much. But I do appreciate it. Very much. It's too hot for you. I've got a whiskey on there, Scotch.
Matt, you
I'm
get the
scared to
whiskey
say
out
that
for
you
me.
because I know you guys have it.
Just be careful, because as soon as Matt heard that word whiskey,
Yeah, I saw the.
You guys want it? You want me to pour?
No.
that's
The end of Gemora for me.
Shabbatai's go-to joke.
Spare one?
That's his go-to joke.
Yeah, if I had a whiskey, that would be the end of it.
That'd be the end of the day?
Yeah,
The end of the day.
I would
Yeah.
one.
All right, you better not give it to him then. We need him to drive us home.
It's good to be one today.
Alrighty. So we're starting a new section, or redoing the new section. The part about a Tanai somehow helping to redirect the Isser.
That would go so good and see. I don't want him to catch what you guys.
Yeah, he's got to be very healthy. He's going,
That's right.
traveling to South Africa
That's
in a
right.
few days.
Don't take any chances.
Unfortunately, I haven't been sick.
Down there, it's
That was
also
not-
summer. It's not winter. So he's going to come back
Now's not
after
the time to start.
having done 40 laps in his pool. I know that's the real reason he's going back to South Africa, is to swim in the swimming pool.
It's great.
It's the happiest I've ever seen him is after he swam in his family swimming pool.
Shabbat, you had a swimming pool.
Yeah. My happiest day was when I got rid of it.
So expensive, huh?
So much work to keep it down.
Alright, let's go swimming in the pool of the Yama Talmud, as they call it. So I was trying to explain to Jack that the word me in this particular sentence, which Baruch Hashem he knew that in Hebrew it would mean who, but he wasn't aware he was reading an Aramaic sentence in which the me is more like a question mark, which we discussed adequately, hopefully. That it's allowing you to read what comes after that as a question rather than as a statement. But I'm suggesting that just seeing the vav there, umi, can already alert you to the fact that it's not a regular me. It's like a Gemora me. It's a little bit of a tip-off.
Very
By the two dots in the middle.
Middle of the page.
There's two dots and then there's a quote from the Beitsa of the Shavin, and then there's another two dots and the Gemora starts to discuss that. So the quote that we're trying to figure out is the Beitsa's last section where it talks about if it's the regular mitzvah of sukkahs, a real sukkah, what we call a sukkah, on Chag HaSukkos, then the wood is usher according to everyone, even according to Rabbi Shimon. So, however, the Beitsa ends off, but if you made a Tanai, then it could be according to your Tanai, which implies that it would be mutter. So, that's called that the Tanai helped. It helped to prevent it from becoming Asr. So, as if to say, without the Tanai it would be Asr. With the Tanai, it can be mutter. So, the Gemora wants to know how that happened, how a Tanai somehow helps. So it starts out questioning Umi Mahani Ba Tanai. So I'm suggesting that the vav of the word Umi is a tip-off, at least for us, that it isn't a regular, let's say, sentence. It's a Gemora type of sentence where the word me is definitely, as an Aramaic word, creating the question rather than being the word me, which means who. It's rather the Gemora / Aramaic way of asking a question. So it doesn't get translated at all. The real words you'd want to translate are the following words: Mahani Ba Tanai, which without the word umi would be a statement. So you first should discuss with yourself that phrase, what would that mean? And then you add the word umi to create a question. So what would it be without the umi, without the umi? Just these words, Mahani Ba Tanai.
It comes to help you.
So Mahani is it helps, Ba, in it, which would be, let's say, in this kind of a sukkah that should have been Asr.
The Tanai comes to help.
It would help to alleviate the Isser, meaning to prevent it from becoming Asr. So without the word umi, it would just be a statement which is summarizing, perhaps, in a way, what we saw in the Beitsa, that it said everything was according to the Tanai. That's a nice way of saying it will help. What will it help? It will help to block the Isser. So instead of the wood becoming Asr because of the mitzvah of Sukkos, the Tanai will help that it shouldn't be Asr. Right? For us, if something prevents something from becoming Asr, that's called helping. So it seems that the Beitsa was suggesting that the condition, he can make some kind of a condition which will help prevent the Isser of the Sukkah, the Isser of the wood. Wood should be Asr, but with the Tanai, it'll be Mutter. So that's called helping. It helps me to be able to use the wood by preventing the Isser from being Chal. So that would be without the word umi. With the word umi, we're asking about that. In other words, instead of just saying a statement, the condition helps the sukkah to remain permissible, we are now going to ask it as a question. Umi, Mahani Ba Tanai, does the condition help the sukkah to remain mutter, to prevent it from becoming asr? Is that really true? Is that really true that the condition can really do that?
Can the condition really help?
Can it really help? Because the Gemora doesn't believe it really can. The Gemora doesn't really understand how it's possible. Because the reason why it's usher is such a strong reason, we don't understand why it's a mere condition, which the man is making some kind of a statement before Sukkot. That's the condition we're talking about. The man just makes a statement. How can that help prevent it from becoming usher? Okay, so are we hooked into the meaning here of this sentence? Kind of working, starting to work? Okay, so why don't you try it again, Jack? So try it without the word me, and then add the question part. Without the question, just as a statement, what would it mean? Mahani Batanai.
Does it help?
Without the question, it's a statement.
It helps.
The what helps? The Tanai. The Tanai helps ba, it. What's the it?
The sukkah.
The sukkah. To what? To remain
Free of
permissible. To remain free of the isser, which means to remain permissible. That you could use the would if you just remember to make the Tanai. That's without the word umi. Now let's add the word umi, meaning let's create a question out of that. Instead of making a statement, sometimes just a matter of the tone of voice, right? For example, I could say, Shimon is smart. Or I could say it as a question, Shimon is smart? I didn't change the words. All I did was make a tone of voice which makes it into a question. That's, in the best case scenario, that's what a me should do. Or there are other words like v'chi. V'chi also do the same thing. V'chi is similar as umi. The Gemora can use the word v'chi in the same way. So all you really have to do is say the same words as a question, the intonation of a question. So let's try it again. Umi mahani batanai.
And does the condition help?
It,
Help it?
meaning help
The sukkah
to remain
free of encumbrance.
and be mutter, free of the isser to remain mutter, because that's what the Bryce was saying. And we're doubting that, we're questioning that, right? We don't really believe it's true, so we're going to be hard put to explain it. In the end, we're going to have an explanation, but it's going to be a long haul, right? So hold your breath. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to try to prove why it shouldn't help. Why shouldn't it help? According to the Gemara's question, it's like incredulous. How could it help? It helps? How could it help? Because it should never help. Why? V'ha
Amar Rav Sheshet Mishum Rav Akiva.
Okay, so what does that word V'ha Amar tell you? If it just said Amar, it would mean so-and-so said, right? The hey does what we were just saying. The hey at the beginning of certain words can make it into a question. Didn't he say? Didn't who say? Rav Shesha say in the name of Rabbi Akiva, which is unusual, by the way, because Rav Shesha lived many years after Rav Akiva. He never probably even saw Rabbi Akiva. But somehow or other, he knew the tradition that Rabbi Akiva was known to have said the following. So he's considered the bearer of these tidings, that Rav Shesha knew that Rabbi Akiva said the following.
Say sukkah.
Correct.
From where do we know about the tree?
No, not always use it's a tree. It can also be just the wood
of the sukkah.
of the sukkah.
Asurim kol shiva. They're not permitted with every.
Is what?
It's not permitted.
Right.
Kol shiva with the whole all 7 days.
All 7 days of the Chag, right? So he wants to know, is there a pasuk that is the source of that halacha? Right? The something in the Torah that alerts us to the fact that just the wood of the sukkah, right? Let's say the walls of the sukkah, the schach, all these things that make up a sukkah, no matter what happens during sukkahs, it's going to remain.
Not permitted for.
Right? You can't use it for your own personal usages. That doesn't seem to make sense. It's just a hut. Right? What's the big deal? There must be a source in the Torah for it, seemingly. So the Kiva asked, by the way, does anyone know what the source of that is? And he did happen to know. What did he say the source was?
Gemora, as it's written, Chag HaSukkos Shivat Yamim. And Sukkot is 7 days for Hashem.
Okay. So there's an implication that Sukkot is for Hashem. Now, apparently, if it was just talking about the Chag, like we would normally say, that means the holiday is for Hashem. But that seems to be redundant. Who else is going to be for what? It's a mitzvah in the Torah. What do you think I'm going to be sitting there doing it, chas v'shalom, for something other than Hashem? Of course it's for Hashem. So, the Gemora understands that it's not, or Rabbi Kiva at least understands that it's not telling you about the Chag really, but about the Sukkah. The Sukkah is for Hashem. What does that mean, the Sukkah is for Hashem? What would you say in your own words? What would you think that means in your own words?
Dedicated to Hashem.
It's like dedicated to Hashem?
It's Hashem wanted this, and this is you giving it what he wanted.
Right.
You're fulfilling
But
it.
it doesn't just mean when I sit in the Sukkah, I do it for the, like we say before we bench, L'shem, Hinani Muchan Mazumin, L'kayim, Mitzvahs Bora, right? That would be on every mitzvah we do that. So what's so special here? Just 1 second. Okay. So if it's telling you much, it must be something more than the norm. Normally a mitzvah is for Hashem. When I put on tefillin, I'm all supposed to think it's for Hashem. So what does it mean here? It's not just talking about the mitzvahs for Hashem. What does it actually mean? What would you think in your... Remember with the Rabbi Kiva's question. This is now, according to his interpretation, going to be a source for the halacha that what you just read, I'm telling you, put it together now, before you continue reading, think what you've read. He told us that this is going to be a source for which halacha?
That you can't use the wood.
The wood of the sukkah, the actual physical walls or whatever of the sukkah. That for some reason you cannot use it for your own personal usage. So he now brought this pasuk. So let's put it together. If we're now interpreting that this pasuk means what? The sukkah is for Hashem, and not just the mitzvah of the sukkah is for Hashem. The actual physical sukkah is for Hashem. So what are we learning then? That's why the wood is usher. So let's put 2 and 2 together. What's he really saying? Because the sukkah is for Hashem, that's why the wood is usher to use. So what is he really saying in your own words? In other words, I'm trying to get you to see what Rashi says, what Sruli's trying to say over here. There's a very big Kiddush in Rashi, but it has to be said that this is what he's actually saying. What's the connection between saying the sukkah is for Hashem and saying the wood is forbidden? Where else do we see that? When I dedicate something to Hashem, it becomes forbidden. Can you have anything else in your repertoire of Torah concepts where that rings true? Exactly. Like a korban, someone takes an animal, let's say that used to be, you could use it for anything, plowing, whatever, and now he dedicates it to Hashem, suddenly can't use it, right? He has to actually sacrifice it on an altar. But over here, let's say there are certain things that you don't have to put on an altar. For example, if I have a chair in my house, and I say to my wife, this is such a beautiful chair, I want it to go to Hashem. I don't want us to, it's not for us. It's really royal, it should be for Hashem. Right?
Yeah.
So I say, this chair is for Hashem. What happens to that chair? Do they have to burn it on the altar? No, they don't put it in the corner. They don't burn it on the altar. They do something somewhere in the middle. They basically say what he just did, unknowingly perhaps, but that's what when we tell him what he did, hopefully he'll be happy to know that he just gave Hashem a present, really. Right? That's really what you're doing when you say an object is for Hashem. Even the animal, as you said, it becomes a korban. So, but we're there, it's even farther. We put it on Hashem's altar, which is like putting it on Hashem's table, and He eats it, as it were, by it burning up. It's like Hashem eating it. But here we're talking about an object, and there is such a precedent that we take an object, a chair, a table, whatever, and you dedicate it to Hashem. It also becomes what?
It becomes kadosh. It's like it's a kedusha.
Exactly, it becomes kadosh. So what is that called when an object becomes kadosh? Hektish. Right? That's what we call it, hektish. That's the phrase we use, the exact name we use. But the idea I think you had. So that's Rabbi Akiva's way of explaining this halacha. We see there's a halacha that the wood of the sukkah becomes usher all the days of sukkahs. No matter what, you can't use that wood for your own personal usage. What does that remind you of? It reminds you of something like an object which you gave to Hashem and becomes usher. It should be 4:35. That's what it was yesterday. It's supposed to be 20 minutes before Shkia. Yeah, a lot of people like to murmur. But it's like the heart. When you hear it murmuring, you know something's wrong, not something's right. I don't even know enough about it. You know much more than me about that.
Well, most murmurs are innocent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most murmurs are innocent. He's heard a lot of innocent murmurs.
Well, what do you do when you hear innocent murmur? Just keep doing what you're doing. So let's just keep doing what we're doing. Okay.
Okay,
So I think Rabbi Akiva is saying, which is what's helping us here, that is how he interprets this pasuk. That the Torah, normally you have to do it with your own object. You have to say, this chair is for Hashem, or this table is for Hashem. Or even like you said, a sheep, you can do the same thing with a sheep. It's just then it's even more serious. It has to get burnt on the altar. But even a regular object, there is this idea that if you take a regular object dedicated to Hashem, it becomes hektish, it becomes asur. So Rabbi Akiva says the chiddush here is that even if you don't say it,
it's still
that's what happens. As soon as Sukkot begins, you erected a sukkah for the sake of the mitzvah of sukkah. Well, lo and behold, as soon as sukkah starts, suddenly it's like it became hektish, just kadosh. Okay? And that explains why the wood is completely forbidden to use, at least during the Chag of Sukkot, because of this special chiddush in the Torah that Hashem sort of imbues this particular object of the mitzvah with the kedusha, the same kedusha as would have been true had it been something dedicated to the Beitsa or to Hashem. So here it's a very big chiddush that's what happens to the sukkah. Okay? Willy-nilly, as it were. But that's why the Gemora is stymied. If Hashem comes along and just sort of waves his magic wand, and that sukkah becomes as holy as anything that you've made hektish, so then why, if I say some kind of hocus pocus tanai, how can I stop that from happening? Hashem said it's going to happen. He said as soon as sukkah starts, I'm going to go, woo, and it's going to become hektish. Can I stand there in front of Hashem and say, no, right? So how can I be making...
No.
That's what the Beitsa said. I can make a tanai to make it stop happening. That if I make a tanai, right, that's what we started out with. Umi mahani ba tanai. Do you really think a tanai can help to stop that locomotive from working, from that Hashem is sending Kedusha down into that sukkah, and you're going to stand there going, no, it's not. Who are you? Right? It's like not even Mighty Mouse, right?
Who are you?
So that's one kasha the Gemora asks. And then the funny thing is that Rabbi Akiva, we had it, Rav Sheshes reporting to us what he heard Rabbi Akiva said. Here we actually have a Beitsa in the name of another Tana, And the same concept really, but just a slightly different limud of how it gets out of this how we learn out of this pasuk. Same pasuk, same idea, but a slightly different limud. Stepping out.
Check out the mincha situation.
All right.
He's
You like twiddling your thumbs, so go and twiddle your thumbs for 5 minutes.
Okay.
See you soon.
What's he going to do?
Yeah, I'll spend a little time on the letters. More than usual. Trying to figure out places.
See, everyone decided before when we started without you that when Mincha comes, everyone's going to leave, so I have a private time with you. You can make up the lost time.
See you soon.
All right.
Have a good one. So, what would you like to do in this private time? You can.
Oh, exhausted.
Just turn off the camera and we'll just take a real siesta.
Yeah.
I did that before. When Matt walked in before, I was really deep in some kind of deep sleep. So I wouldn't begrudge you if you wanted to take this time to just relax.
A lot of time to sleep in the next world.
Yeah, I heard about that. Okay, so if you want,
So why does this tonight comes to help you?
no, can it help?
Yeah.
Can it really help? And you see what the Gemora really means now. The Torah has a pasuk, either Rabbi Akiva's version of the limud from this pasuk, or we're going to have Rabbi Yehuda ben Becerra's version of a limud from this pasuk. Either way, this pasuk is screaming, the sukkah becomes kadosh. So Hashem has a pasuk that's screaming, the sukkah becomes kadosh. How are you going to stop that with just a little old Tanai that Shabbatai Jacobson says, or that Hillel Faerman says? Who am I to stop this locomotive of Hashem's Kedusha from being chal? How is that even possible to think about? It's like saying, I'm going to stop Shabbos from happening. Friday afternoon, right before Shkia, I'm going to make a declaration. Today is not Shabbos. Sorry. Doesn't work, right? Hashem says it is Shabbos. I can't make it not Shabbos, right? I can't stop it from becoming Shabbos, right? So how can I stop this sukkah from becoming Kaddish? The pasuk said it's going to become Kaddish. How in the world can I stop that? With just making a declaration. Seems like making a declaration that it's not going to become Shabbos, or it's not going to become some other thing which Hashem is saying it will be.
Why are they even asking this question?
The Beitsa seem to indicate that the Tanai would help. Because what did the Beitsa say? It is Asr, but if he makes a Tanai, everything's according to his Tanai. Which it would imply that it would be Asr unless he makes a Tanai, and then it would be Mutter.
And the Tanai was made for a standing sukkah during sukkah?
If you read the sentence in the Beitsa,
Yeah.
shoving,
Yeah.
it says, even though we have a maklokas about how to treat a shelter that's called sukkah during Pesach and Shavuos, but if you have the structure which we call sukkah on sukkahs, shoving, everyone agrees that
It's Asura.
sukkah sachag b'chag is asr.
Right.
That means the wood from a regular sukkah, even according to Rabbi Shimon, will be asr on Chag HaSukkos. And now we know why, because we have a pasuk in the Chumash. But the end of the Beitsa says, but if you make a Tanai, everything's according to the Tanai, which indicates that it should have been Asr, but if you make a Tanai, it won't be. If you make the right kind of Tanai, it won't be.
And that Tanai is not for an Ophelis?
Hmm?
And that Tanai that they're talking about was not for an Ophelis?
It could be. But why would it help if it fell down? It's hektish. You made something which is called hektish. So,
That's all hektish.
let's say you dedicate a chair to the base of Mikdash, right? Let's say during the regular course of the year, you decide a certain chair that's in your house is so beautiful you want Hashem to have it, right? And let's say there was a base of Mikdash standing where the Kaisels today is standing. There's a really a Beis Hamikdash there, and you dedicate it to the Beis Hamikdash, and you bring it down there and you give it to the Gizbar, right? So you know what? That chair is hektish. Nobody's allowed to sit in that chair anymore, unless the Gizbar can decide to sell it, and then he's basically removing it from hektish for the sake of gaining the money.
But that chair is intact. We're talking about a broken sukkah here.
Okay,
Yeah, so,
you just fell into my trap.
yeah.
What do you think would actually happen if I donate my chair to the Beis Hamikdash, which I'm not, and the Gizbar takes it, puts it in a special corner, and something happened, something fell on the chair and it's broken. Now there's wood lying on the floor. Who owns that wood?
Yeah, still the best to
It still belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. That doesn't change. The truth is, if he had sold it 5 minutes ago when it was still a chair, he would have gotten maybe $500 for such a chair. Now, when he tries to sell it just as pieces of wood, he probably won't get too much for it. Okay, he might just throw it in the wood bin for the wood that's supposed to be used for the altar. It still belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, and more importantly, it's still usher for personal private usage.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone uses it for their own personal and private usage, you know what happens? Well, conceptually, it's called me'ila, right? We've talked about this perhaps in the past. Someone who gets pleasure from something that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, he gets personal benefit from it. He has to bring a korban, first of all, to atone.
And the extra.
That's right. He's considered to have stolen from the Beis Hamikdash. He has to give back the value plus a fifth. But even more importantly, he has to bring a korban, which could be cost more than the thing itself.
Mm-hmm.
He takes 1 teaspoon of oil and anoints himself, and then someone comes up and tells him, "What did you just do? That was oil that belonged to the Beis Hamikdash." Right?
So why do we even go into the sukkah in the first?
Well, the first part of the Beitsa.
Right, so in other words, it's a gizbar rather than a sukkah mitzvah.
Well, Gizbar is someone who works with the
No,
Beis
not a
Hamikdash.
gizbar. I mean, what did you call it yesterday? A hut.
Gazebo.
Gazebo. It's a gazebo.
Right. So that's like our Mishnah, which Rashi said in the Mishnah, and the Beitsa also is clearly delineating 2 types of sukkah. There's a sukkah regularly, which would be, let's say, Pesach and Shavuos, which Rashi said in the Mishnah. And then the Beitsa switches gears in the middle and says, but if it's a sukkah of sukkahs, during sukkahs, then the halach is different. That means till then we weren't talking about a sukkah of sukkahs during sukkahs. We're talking about a gazebo.
So you could say, for a sukkah out of sukkahs, or a gazebo, it's a non-matter, right? If it's on
Well,
Pesach or Shavuot.
The
right?
truth is, we've already learned this Gemora. We do know that's the Gemora's answer.
But now
But the
here
Gemara-
we can't tell.
The Gemara is saying, halacha number 1 and 2 in the Beitsa are speaking about a gazebo, just a structure that's for outdoors that you want to use on Pesach and Sukkot. Pesach and Shavuos. Halacha number 3 that says clearly is talking about a sukkah of sukkahs on sukkahs is switching to a mitzvah sukkah, not a gazebo. And halacha 4, according to this theory, is saying we're switching back to talking about the regular sukkah. It's a pretty strange progression through the Beitsa. There's halacha 1 and 2 are talking about sukkah A. Halacha 3 is going to sukkah B. Halacha 4 is going back to sukkah A. Very strange, but if we're forced to say it, we're forced to say it, which is what the Gemora starts out by saying, that the only real alternative we can see is if a Tanai helps, which the Beitsa in Halacha 4 says it does help, it must be talking about
Sukkah.
going back to the regular sukkah, a gazebo type of sukkah on Pesach and Shavuos. At the end of the day, we may not have to say that, because the Gemora, which we started to learn yesterday, starts to talk about different aspects of the sukkah, the sheep, the grapes, and so forth. It says it's all usher. Then it's going to say, but if you make it tonight, it's mutter. So that's proving what we thought was impossible is really possible. That a tanai could help even when it's a mitzvah of a sukkah, a regular sukkah on sukkahs.
They're quite different things. I mean, hanging pictures up doesn't make the sukkah, but hanging skacha makes the sukkah. You know? That's halacha. Right?
Yeah,
You
but
can't do anything about that. But if you...
we haven't seen the Rashi, but I assume Rashi will say now what he already has started saying back in the Mishnah, that when you have in mind to make something part of a structure, it becomes part of the structure. Rashi said in the Mishnah regarding the malacha of soiser,
Yeah.
that if you decided to make this much schach part of the sukkah and the rest not, it might help. But if you've made the entire pile of schach part of the sukkah, that's called bittul, you decide to leave it there permanently as a part of the structure, then it becomes part of the structure. Okay? So we said that regarding the malacha of soiser, that if you've taken something and made it part of the structure, you can't just come along and take it away.
This is not considered like hanging a banana in front of a dolphin. It's not really
Well,
woven
first of
in,
all,
it's,
now I think you're getting into thin ice, because exactly your reasoning would be, if you actually think about it, which I think as you started to say it, I think you started to realize this is more what Rashi was hinting at, that if you would take those boards that weren't quote-unquote woven into the wall and you would weave them into the wall, which I said at the time could be probably, in our parlance, hammer it into the wall, screw it into the wall. So now instead of having an inch-thick wall, I've taken an extra board and I've screwed it in and make it a 2 or 3 inch thick wall to make it more insulated. Of course, the entire thing is a wall.
Right.
So here, when he hangs the sheets on and he's attaching it to the sukkah first of all. It can't float by itself. It's not just standing next to the sukkah like the boards in that case that you're referring to. It's actually he did attach it. He did weave it into the sukkah, so to speak. Weaving being a sort of a loose expression of attaching. He attached it to the sukkah. He attached the sheets to become the new adornment of the walls, and he attached a bunch of things to the sukkah. All these things get attached, but in my mind, more importantly, or at least as importantly, he also wants it to be part of the sukkah. That was his intention. When you hang an adornment onto the sukkah, you're basically saying, I want this to be part of the sukkah. Like a woman who wears jewelry. Can you say it's not part of her? If she walks out of the house on Shabbos in a place where there's no Eruv, or in a place that's a true Rishus HaRabim,
Right.
and she's wearing rings on her finger and necklace, are you going to say, oh my gosh, she now has to bring a korban to the Beitsa Mikdash because she is carrying these pieces of jewelry?
No, it's part of it.
It's a part of her. That's part of what she is. It's not called carrying. It's not an extraneous thing. So also, I believe an adornment of a sukkah would be the same halacha, really, except it's an adornment of the sukkah as opposed to adornment of the woman. But it's the same idea intrinsically, that she made it part of her, you're making this part of the sukkah.
However, you can make it tonight that you can use
So
it.
we're going to see that you can make it tonight, but that's going to be a chiddush, and therefore the Gemora didn't want to accept that, by the way. The Gemora, all the way up until right now, where our arm is being twisted into accepting that you can make it tonight, the Gemora, for 30 lines of Gemora, would not accept that. If the Torah says it becomes kadosh, the sukkah, and obviously anything that's part of the sukkah, so then how can we say you can make it tonight? The Gemara just took that as a simple, axiomatic truth. If the Torah says it's kadosh, you can't stop that from happening. But we're now going to encounter in this Beitsa about the grapes and the this and the that you could make it tonight. So now we're going to be forced to come up with a way that somehow or other tonight could stop the kedusha from happening. But it's a tremendous kiddush. The Gemara is only saying it, is only going to try to say it now because it's being forced by this Beitsa. The Beitsa, you can't say like we wanted to say before. 1, 2, 1 and 2 are regular sukkah, 3 is not, it's a sukkah of mitzvah, and 4 is going back to a regular. We're not going to be able to say that in this price. We're going to have a Tanai helping where we can't say it's going back to a regular sukkah. It's mamish talking about the grapes and the this and the that you hung up on the sukkah.
So it's saying that Tanai helps here, even though you cannot consider this separate to the sukkah.
That's
this is
right.
part of the sukkah. It's
part of the
beautiful,
sukkah.
and still the Tanai will help.
And somehow this Tanai helps. So we're going to have to come up with a whole new-fangled way of thinking of Tanai that's going to explain this. Because so far in the Gemora just kept saying, no, that's impossible. And it didn't really bring a proof to that. It just said, you know why it's impossible? Because Hashem says it's kadosh. You can't come along and say it's not kadosh. That was just like axiomatic. But now the Gemora is going to be has to come up with some kind of an explanation, because we have a Beitsa. Then unless we just say the whole Beitsa is a mistake, which is very, is not an alternative we like to do. We don't like to do that really. Therefore, we're going to avoid it if at all possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad we had this discussion, because this really does put the finger directly on the problem. Now we're sort of very aware of what the problems that the Gemora is encountering here.
I always had a picture in my mind that this is kind of flimsy stuff. You hang a few bananas, you hang this, you hang that, but it's nice, but gee whiz. Who cares? But it's actually considered part of the sukkah.
Yeah, that's why this brace is actually extremely kind of scary in a way, because
maybe this is why
it means when you're sitting, maybe they're just careful. Like, why should you put yourself in that position?
Yeah.
Although the truth is, when you hang a poster when you staple it into the wall, I don't see too many people using that for their personal pleasure. But I guess once you let one thing, people start to get into all these other things, and then someone might just, in the middle of sukkahs, without thinking, just block off something and use it.
A lot of people walk into a sukkah and say, "Wow, this is beautiful. Look at all this
That's
stuff."
that's not getting real pleasure.
It's not enough.
Think about I kept comparing it to the case where I donated a chair to the Beitsa Mikdash.
Right.
If I walk into the Beitsa Mikdash and I see someone donated a beautiful chair to the Beitsa Mikdash, I think I'm allowed to say it's a beautiful chair.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, it's not so simple what I'm saying, because the Gemora in Pesachim does entertain this question. In certain things that are usher to look at, do we say there is me'ilah? There is a question. Like, let's say Reach, the Gemora says, is a problem, smelling the smell. That's why they have a problem with the famous Gemora that says that during the smell, when they did Besamim, no woman would have to wear perfume, because it was such a beautiful smell. And the Gemora says also, when they lit the menorah at Simchas Beis HaShoeva, no one had to use any light, because it lit up the entire city. That's a proof also that in the old days, not like today, the highest point in Jerusalem was the Beis HaMikdash. Not like today, it's sort of at the bottom of a huge hill. Kind of weird. It used to be the top of the hill, now it's the bottom of the hill. Anyhow, so what I'm saying is not necessarily so simple, but for the most part, I think we would agree that you're allowed to look and think to yourself that something's beautiful. But the truth is, there are certain things where the Gemora says it, like, for example, Kodesh HaKodashim. The Gemora said there were certain people who had to go in to do repairs in the Beis HaMikdash. When they had to repair something, let's say in the Kodesh HaKodashim, they had to kind of almost like blindfold themselves, so they wouldn't be like looking and gazing upon the part that they're not really supposed to see. A little bit different than what we're talking about, but there are certain things that the Gemora seems to say would be a problem of getting personal pleasure from even looking at. But I don't think it's regular things that were donated to the Beis HaMikdash. I think it's certain other things within the Beis HaMikdash that are asur. Right now I can't remember what classification of things fall into that category.
Well, we don't look at the hands of the Kohanim during Dochanim, right?
So that's a bit different. That's
Yeah,
because the
yeah.
Shekhinah was like coming through their fingers or whatever, so there's an idea of covering that up, of not looking, but to say there's an object that now belongs to Hashem. I mean, the truth is, you know, if you think about it, it says during Yom Kippur, the people would stand and watch all the avoda. All that avoda is all hektish. And they're standing there watching it. Someone must have said at some point, that's really beautiful. How can everybody stand there watching something? You know, there's like thousands of people. One person for sure going to find it beautiful. And probably even comment, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. So I don't think that a normal hektish thing is usher to get pleasure from. But there are certain things that the Gemora says are forbidden, but for the most part, there's no real isser. The isser we're talking about is like eating it. I guess there's other things, like for example, the sheet. I brought the example, let's say a person doesn't want to go back to the house to get the sheets for when he goes to sleep at night, so he just takes it off the wall, wraps himself in the sheet, and he feels he's outsmarted, you know, been smarter than everybody else, but the truth is, that would be usher. Be getting pleasure from the sheet, which is usher. So that's why this Beitsa that we're going to bring up is really the true proof against the theory that we were using the whole time, that you can't make a Tanai to outsmart Hashem. Turns out there must be some kind of a Tanai, because it says clearly in the Beitsa there is a way of getting around the Isser. And then the Gemora is going to have to come up with a special kind of a Tanai that somehow will create the heter. Want to see some of the Roshes perhaps while they're out?
Yeah, that'd be good. Let's see.
So we talked about La Hashem. We already did that one, right? Mashma Kol Shiva La Hashem. Who hektish. It's all like hektish. Ala Chagiga, the other limud of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. We're comparing Sukkah to Chagiga. We say that the Shem Shemaim is Chal on the Chagiga, Shalmi Chagiga. It's talking about the actual Korban, which is Shlamim, the Shlamim that you eat on the Chag. The Aser Nisha Huktishu. It becomes Aser once it becomes Hektish. Then we say in that pasuk that says Chag HaSukkos, we're, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, we're interpreting the word Chag to be symbolic for Chagiga. Which isn't a big stretch, but that's what he's saying. Instead of saying Chag HaSukkos, is talking about the actual holiday. Chag HaSukkos would mean the Chagiga of Sukkos. Okay. Now we have Reb Menashe or whatever saying the Seifa of the Beitsa, which we had Rabbi Shimon in the Beitsa, and then it went on to say that Sukkah is Aser on Sukkos, and then it said that Tanai helps. We're saying the Seifa of that, where we learned Hisna or Hitna. Aleha. If he made a Tanai, we said it helps. It can make it. It can keep it mutter. That's going back on the case of Sukkah Da'alma. The general Sukkah, the gazebo type of Sukkah, like we said, Kai. That's what it's going on. And that is like saying Aresha, the Beitsa, back to the beginning of the Beitsa, halacha 1 and 2 of the Beitsa, ka mehader. It is returning. The Beitsa in the halacha 4 is returning to the same kind of sukkah that was discussed in halacha 1 and 2. Rabbi Shimon. That we had an argument on that kind of a sukkah, a regular sukkah on Pesach and Shavuos, between the Tanakama, who we said is probably Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Shimon. And there we learned
Katanya Enotlin
Eitzim Mina Sukkah. There we talked about the Tanakama didn't let you take, and Rabbi Shimon said you could, and we ended up saying what?
It's a
Ukimna. We made a new kimta. We made a special. We said it's talking about a special case, Bishana, where it had fallen down. Right? Then we said, oh, if it fell down, then there's no longer a problem of taking a structure apart. Then we have a machlokas about muktzah between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. Hitana. Then it went ahead and said in Hitana Aleha. So now we're saying it's going on that case. In the muktzah case, you could talk about a tanai as well. That's what the Beitsa is saying, according to our this new approach of Rabbi Menashe. That you say halacha number 4 when it talks about the tanai is going back to the beginning of the Beitsa where it was talking about muktzah really. It's saying if you made a tanai on that sukkah that now has fallen, but you had made the tanai miba'od yom while it was still daytime, like erev hachag, you made a tanai, and what was your tanai? She'im
Tifo
machar, that if it will fall down tomorrow, Yasikana, I would reserve the right to burn it, to use it as fuel. Then the Beitsa is saying it works. Hakol Lafi Tano. Right? Everything will work according to his Tanai. And now it makes sense because it's not stopping Kedusha in the category of Muksa, which we already know if you're really thinking about using something, it doesn't become Muksa. The whole machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon is in something that's a bit in the gray area, where it's not clear whether you were thinking about it or not. Then Rabbi Yehuda says, okay, then it becomes Asur automatically at the beginning of Yom Tov or Shabbos. But Rabbi Shimon says, no, if you were thinking about using it or even possibly thinking about using it, it doesn't become Asur. So here we have a thing that we said, okay, it should become Asur, according to Rabbi Yehuda, because he holds there's a problem of muksa, which means at the beginning of Yom Tov everything is classified as muksa, theoretically. But if the man makes a statement that I want to use it tomorrow, it works. It's a standing sukkah. You can't use it. You can't take apart a sukkah on Yom Tov. No, his tanai is that if it will fall down, and it will end up being not a problem of taking apart a structure, the only problem will be muksa. I'm already making a declaration now that I don't want it to become muksa. So that the Gemora is admitting a tanai can certainly help in the world of muksa, where it's all dependent on your das. Then a tanai can certainly help because you're megala your das, you're revealing your real intentions, which the whole problem of muksa is usually in a case where you didn't reveal your intention. We just have to go on the normal mind of a person and assume he's thinking one way or the other, or say it's not strong enough to help push off muksa. Here he's making a declaration, and now we clearly know his intention to use it, so then even Rabbi Yehuda, right, would give in and admit that you can use this thing if it happens to fall down, because he's already made it clear his intention. And the whole problem of muksa is usually when we don't know his intention, or we have to guess his intention, but if we clearly know his intention through his declaration of his intention, then certainly he could control that halacha. That doesn't seem to be a problem.
What's the halacha regarding using stuff in the sukkahs on sukkah?
What are you talking about?
You can't freeze hanging there. You can eat it?
I think we'd have to look up the Mishnah Berurah. We can do that at the end of this sugi if you want to look up the Mishnah Berurah, as we've done in other sugis. It's very helpful. But I would say, unless the Mishnah Berurah comes up with some special kind of perush, which I couldn't really think of it offhand, but I would say the Gemora is clear that it's a problem. Unless you make the declaration, which most people don't make the declaration, which we're going to see in the Gemora, could prevent it from becoming usher. But most people don't make the declaration, just hang it up and they go into the house and wait for a sukkah to start. So if they didn't do any special tanai, then the Gemora says that it all becomes usher. Which I guess if it's within reach, you should warn people. If it's way up high where it's not going to be easy to reach anyway, so then I probably don't even have to warn people. But some people say there's a problem also. Often, at least in the olden days, they used to use little splinters for toothpicks.
These days.
And sometimes if you're sitting in like a wooden shack, which has nice little splinters just waiting to be plucked off the walls, and you're sitting like something's really bothering you, something caught in your teeth, and you're sitting there talking for hours in your sukkah, it could very well happen, even if you never hung anything in your sukkah, you're a Lubavitcher, you don't put anything in your sukkah, but the walls of the sukkah are there. They can't stop you from putting the walls in, right?
That's it.
So let's say the guy just reaches over without even thinking, just takes a little splinter off the wall and starts to clean his teeth with it. And he's so happy he finally got that one piece that's been bothering him for the last 3 hours. What do you have to tell him? Sorry, that toothpick's off limits. I'll go in my house, I'll get you some toothpicks, guy. I didn't know you needed a toothpick, but please give me that splinter back and stuff it back into the wall or something, I don't know. That's a problem. You have to remember not to use, even if things fall. It can often happen, you have schach that falls down. I remember one year I thought I was the smartest guy in the world. I took a big branch of a pine tree and put it up, and slowly I started to realize how stupid that was, and all the pine needles just fell. Not only it made a big mess,
You shake it.
but also it's not the greatest stock, because at the end of the day what you thought was going to be nice shady sukkah could be a big problem halakhically if there's not enough shade. So regardless of that problem, you have a different problem. If whatever falls, then you decide to, again, use a little twig that fell for a toothpick, you might be in trouble. Because when sukkah started, it was asur, and you didn't make the tanai, it could be you can't even make a tanai on the schach, because the schach is a schach. And then it becomes asur all 7 days as if it were hektish. So you can't just use it to be a substitute toothpick. Alright, anyhow, to make a long story short, I assume you guys had a nice mincha.
Yeah.
Now you ready to dig in again?
Do you have your soup?
Huh?
Do you have your soup?
I didn't have any soup.
You want to make some soup?
Didn't have enough time.
Probably takes about 2 or 3 minutes to heat up the water.
You want some soup?
5-10 minutes to drink your soup. Then I'm fine, thank you. I have
Yes,
my
please.
caffeine soup.
I don't know if you have any glasses. Anyway, let me stop you.
You can use this one if you want. I didn't drink from it, it was just poured into
I'm not
it.
heavy, but these guys.
You want to rinse it out. It's just had coffee in it. Just, it's a proper,
Is this HaYeshiva's?
I think so. I wouldn't finish it if I were you. Put it for tomorrow.
Just your Tanakh mitzvah doesn't help, right?
Talking about mitzvah, there's many mitzvahs in the Torah.
Mitzvah
Talk
sukkah.
about here, the sukkah, the Gemora is assuming it shouldn't help. As the pasuk says, there is kedusha. It's hard to imagine that you can stop Hashem's kedusha with a simple statement. We're going to see later, we're going to be forced to say there is some kind of a statement you can make. But the Gemora does not assume that there is such a thing.
You can have corn, or you can have HaYeshiva. Corn, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that the reason that the Chabadniks don't hang is not for this reason. They don't hang because there's enough, there's coverage enough without having to beautify.
I see.
There's beauty within the plate.
Right.
The Hasidim hang out there with decorations.
I think everyone does.
Fruits. Grapes.
Gemora says there were people who did it. I've never seen it, but
Why do insects that come on them? Insects.
there are sometimes problems.
Insects are hungry too.
Hmm?
Insects are hungry.
If you don't have regular guests, at least you have some guests if they come in.
You have fruit flies.
Yeah.
Instead of ushpizin, you have ushpizants.
I don't know, straight old tops of insects out there.
I haven't got any, I don't have any teaspoons, so you have to.
There are some spoons, you just have to locate them.
Australia is one of the most dangerous insects in the world.
What's that?
Australia is one of the most dangerous insects in the world.
A few bags there. That's for
Where?
sure.
South Africa?
Australia, no, Australia.
Australia.
We all have the bulldog ant.
Gents,
Bulldog.
I hate to break it to you, but we've lost a lot of time today because of Mincha. We only have a certain amount of time left, not even 15 minutes. I think we should try to economize.
Just carry on. Here's a fork.
Especially since this is being televised and your wives are going to wonder what you do here. And they're going to find out.
It will be in the soup.
Part of it.
Be in the dog sukkah.
In the dog house.
It will be a soup.
So let's show the women who are watching a different side of our personalities, the side that likes to learn. Not just the side that likes to press. Alright. Little do you know that Shabbatai has been learning up a storm while you guys were davening.
It's great. Give you the chance to get a few things done.
Yeah, we accomplished quite a lot, actually. We got a number of Roshes out of the way, we got a huge discussion out of the way. Alright, let's get back to the Gemora. So the Gemora says that Rabbi Akiva holds the reason why the Atzei Sukkah is Asur on Sukkos is because the Torah is Meramez, teaches us through the word La Hashem that it wants us to consider it as Hektish, as Rashi says. But Rev Yehuda ben Becerra has a slightly different limud, but the same idea. Betanya, right? You want to read it, Jack?
The Tanya Omer.
Rabbi Yehuda ben Becerra Omer.
Rabbi Yehuda ben Becerra Omer. Minayin shekeshem shechal Hashem Shemayim al hachagiga kachal Shem Shemayim al hasukkah.
Right.
He's comparing it just like it's on the chagiga, it's also on the sukkah.
Right. And that's his question. How do we know such a thing? It's a big chiddush. How in the world will we know such a thing?
Yeah.
Talmud Lomar
Talmud Lomar Chag HaSukkot Shivat Yamim.
La Hashem, which sounds like the same pasuk that Rabbi Akiva used, but he's going to be using it as a hekish rather than Rabbi Akiva was using the word La Hashem as the all-important word. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meser is more using the hekish, that the word chag is symbolic for chagiga, and that's juxtaposed to the word sukkah in the pasuk. So it's Hashem comparing chagiga to sukkah. So we say ma chag la Hashem, just like a korban chagiga is certainly la Hashem. So too the Torah is teaching us that a sukkah, the physical sukkah, has to be looked at as belonging to Hashem. And therefore, just like anything else you donate to the Beitsa Mikdash is completely also for you to get any personal pleasure from it. Okay, so just before we see the next little clip, let's just remember that this whole thing was being asked as a question. How come the Beitsa before said, the sukkah is asur, but if you make a tanai, it's okay? How can a tanai help? Hashem said through these two different limudim that it's asur because it's like hektish. How can you take something that Hashem says is hektish and you'll stand up and say it's not? How is that possible? So Rabbi Menashe's solution is to say, Brei de Rava, Asa'an l'sukkah da'alma. Okay, so let's remember the Beitsa. The Beitsa had 4 halachas, right? It's always good to review what we're talking about. Halacha 1 and 2 of the Beitsa, we're talking about a sukkah that's like a gazebo, right? Just in the backyard, you have a nice little structure for sitting out in the backyard and getting some fresh air. And that's what it's saying in the first part of the Beitsa, that if it fell down and you want to use the wood on Yom Tov, according to Rabbi Yehuda you can't, the Tanakama you can't. According to Rabbi Shimon you could. Halacha 3, however, of that same Beitsa says, but if that same gazebo would not be on Pesach or Shavuos, but would rather be on Chag HaSukkos, so that's your Sukkah mamish, then you could not, even if it fell down, you could not use the wood, according to Rabbi Shimon. Now Halacha 4 said, but if you make a tanai, it'll be mutter. Says Rabbi Menashe Brei de Rava, you know what that last thing is talking about, making a tanai? Not a sukkah, a regular sukkah on sukkahs. We just said that becomes hektish. You can't stop that with a regular tanai. It's going back to the case originally that we're talking about a gazebo on Pesach and Shavuos, and saying, but remember I told you that Rabbi Yehuda says you can't use it if it falls down because it's muksa? But if you make a tanai before Yom Tov that you're going to use it if it falls down, then even Rabbi Yehuda will let you use it.
There's no problem with muksa then.
No problem with muksa. Because muksa really is a problem when we don't know what your intentions are. Therefore we say it's asur, probably you don't want to use it. But if you made a declaration that you want to use it should it fall down, then we go with your intention.
So it's like you had his mind from yesterday.
That's right, you had it in mind. That's what your declaration is doing. So it's not a tanai to stop Kedusha or anything like that. It's a regular gilui, a revelation of your intention, which is good. That can prevent muksa from happening. So that makes sense. That if it's going back to that case, then it makes sense. Okay? But, just for the sake of thoroughness, the Gemora says, but, according to that, we have to admit that we're concluding at this point in the Gemora that what? No, right, we just said that. But aval, but
sukkah mitzvah lo
mahani batana. Right, we're not giving up. Right, we're admitting that the original supposition that it won't help is true. If you're talking about the sukkah of a mitzvah, which means where the Hashem just said it becomes hektish, and you want to start to try to stop it with your condition, no. We're admitting now that it doesn't help. So the Gemara's original supposition that no tanai can stop Hashem's kedusha is true. It's true. You can't stop it. When the Beitsa said you could use a tanai to stop the isser, it wasn't the isser from hektish that nobody could stop. It's the isser. The beginning of the Beitsa spoke about of muksa. That a declaration can help. So the Gemara now is going to try to figure that out. We just now came to a conclusion that if it's a sukkah of a mitzvah which has real kedusha of hektish, as Rashi said, and you want to try to stop that with a condition, you can't. But now the Gemara is going to say, I know logically we thought that to be true, but we're now going to try to prove that that's actually not right. As we say as a rhetorical question. the sukkah de mitzvah lo. If it's a sukkah of a mitzvah, a tanai doesn't help, which we've been saying the whole time it doesn't help, and we just admitted it doesn't help, and now the Gemora is turning around and saying, wait a minute. Someone just came up with a new piece of evidence. You think it doesn't help, but there's a new piece of evidence now that someone just brought in for inspection. A new Beitsa came to light. You want to try it, Sruli?
Sukkah mitzvah lo, and a tanai of sukkah.
You have to read it as a question. Sukkah de mitzvah lo? You think on a sukkah de mitzvah a tanai wouldn't help? But I have a Beitsa that it does help.
Vatanya sachacha kehilchasei.
It's actually sichecha.
Sichacha kehilchasei. He covers it.
Right. The man covered his sukkah with schach, obviously. Kehilchasa.
Like the way it's done.
Now you know what that means, by the way?
halacha.
What? Yes, and well, you know what that means? Enough shade, right? More shade than sun, etc. And other halachas, there's a few other halachas you have to know. Now, it shouldn't be connected to the ground, etc., etc. You know why it adds that, by the way, in my opinion? Because let's say you didn't cover it properly, and someone comes along and says, you know, that's a puzzle sukkah, there's too much sun pouring into your sukkah. So first of all, there's nothing you can do about it. If it's actually the first day of sukkahs, you can't add more schach. You just have to go to your neighbor and ask him to mooch off of him. But you know what will happen if that's really true? What about all the parts of the sukkah then? Are they going to be usher?
No.
If it turns out you have a puzzle sukkah, then nothing became hektish. Right? I think that's why the Gemora is starting out with that preface. If you cover the sukkah properly, which means it's a real sukkah, then the pasuk that says it becomes hektish, it comes to fruition, right? So then you have all these following halachas. But if it happened to be that you didn't cover it properly and it's not a kosher sukkah, even if you hung up this and you hung up that and everything like that, doesn't matter, nothing's asur. Because if it's not a real sukkah of a mitzvah, because you just didn't happen to do it right, then nothing becomes asur. When does things become asur? When you did it the right way and it becomes a real sukkah of a mitzvah, then Hashem says, oh, it's a sukkah of a mitzvah, it's hektish. Then maybe that's why it starts out with that expression. Now, once it was a good sukkah, which on Erev, we're talking all this on Erev, Yom Tov, right? You can't do any of this on Yom Tov. He came along and he did what? Itra.
Crowned it.
Yep, with
Karamim or
different kinds of blankets and sheets. That's the next.
Dinner sheets, Mitsurin,
Which are
design.
have special designs on them, like special pictures on them and stuff like that. Or other things he could have done to adorn the sukkah.
Surin, the thing, drawing.
Yeah,
Let's say here.
right. That's what they talk about today as being a painter is called a tzayar. But really it's the idea of creating an image. That's how the Yetzer Hara works. That's what we call it, Yetzer Hara, Yetzer this. Because it's creating an image in your mind of how you're going to enjoy a nisr, so it makes it enticing. That's the real problem with the Yetzer Hara, not this that tells you to do an avera. Right? If an ugly little dog comes and tells you to do an avera, you don't listen. But if a beautiful woman comes and tells you to do an avera, you might listen. Right? Because you get enticed by the image, like Madison Avenue taught us.
That's right.
That's why people like donating to Sruli, is a beautiful image.
I want to put up a good base in Israel.
You will. One day, B'ezras Hashem. Okay, so let's keep going. So he decided to put up these blankets or whatever. My wife used to actually do this. She took sheets and she stapled them to the walls of our sukkah so that it would be nice, like wallpaper. Or another thing he could have done.
Tolabat goizim. You hang on them goizim on mats.
Yeah. Or.
Shkadim or also almonds, or farsikim and peaches. Or romanim and pomegranates, or picha anavim.
Bunches of grapes.
Bunches. Yonos shimonim.
Yenos are wines, different types of wine. Shmanim, different types of oils.
Oils.
Salassos, different types of solas. Solas is finely sifted flour. All these different kinds of things which represent the beauty of Eretz Yisrael, probably. And also took stalks of wheat, apparently, ataros shibolim, made them into crowns of the stalks themselves. Anyhow, he did all these different things to make his sukkah look beautiful. Now you're sitting in a sukkah with like basically the supermarket hanging off the walls. You have nuts, you have grapes, you have this, you have that. It's like the little kid who's in the shopping cart, right? He's like picking things off the aisle as the mother's pushing it around, right? It's very easy just to pluck off his snack. So the Gemora has to tell you, Aser lihistapek mehem. You can't get any usage from them. You can't use them. You can't pluck them off and have your snack. Ad till the very last day of Sukkot, right? Which could be the beginning of Simchas Torah when it's not Sukkot anymore, or it might even be Asur on the Simchas Torah because of the halachas of Muksa, but that's a different point that Tosos talks about. Shel Chag V'im. Now this is the part that we're trying to aim for. It says over here, look at this. V'im. Hakol L'Vitano. Sounds reminiscent. This is what it said in the previous Beitsa. And Reb Menashe Bar Yehuda, Breda Rava said he thought this last part is going back to a regular sukkah on Pesach and Shavuos, which has nothing to do with a real sukkah of a mitzvah, and it's just telling you in Hilchos Muksa if you make a declaration, but now we can't say that. This Beitsa is clearly talking about the sukkah of a mitzvah, and right at the end of that discussion about a sukkah of a mitzvah, it's telling you, but you can make it tonight to get around the Isser. So here we can't, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, right? Here we're up against a wall. We have to admit that this Beitsa is telling us that a Tanai helps to stop the Kedusha of what we thought was something unstoppable. Hashem's saying it's hektish, and we couldn't stop it. No, you could stop it. You can make it some kind of a Tanai and stop it. We'll have to see tomorrow what that is. Shkoyach.